Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Convergence Advantage, the official podcast series of CIS 26. Today's discussion focuses on a topic that sits at the very heart of credibility in investment migration, due diligence. We will explore how rigorous screening processes are not simply compliance requirements, but strategic tools that protect program integrity. We are joined today by Dr. Marta Browne, who is a senior consultant and risk assessment expert at Global Communication Solutions Limited, also known as GCSL. Welcome, Dr. Browne.
Hi, how are you, Miss Michael? I'm happy to be here.
We welcome you. So, for those of us who don't know, have never met you before, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be part of Global Communication Solutions Limited?
Yes, for the last 25 years, I've been a police officer, risen to the rank of assistant commissioner, worked in various fields, investigation, intelligence, primarily security. Right? I've been doing that, like I said, for the last 25 years, but now I'm venturing into something that's different. Migration in investment, more specifically, due diligence. So I'm using my background as a police officer, as an investigator, as an intelligence officer to aid our Caribbean countries to further strengthen their product in due diligence. So I'm with GCSL for the last about 3 years, providing consultancy services and ensuring that the product for the Caribbean countries and the international community is very strong through our robust due diligence checks.
Well, within the program, due diligence is either a really good thing or looked at as really a bad thing. Personally speaking, I understand the benefits of having due diligence, as we all do, but to the clients, it's usually a little, they're like, what? You have to check me out? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. To
Mhm.
begin, could you briefly introduce GCSL and explain how your firm operates at the intersection of due diligence, intelligence, and reputation management in the investment migration space?
All right. GCSL, Global Communication Solution, has been around for a number of years, quite a number of years, um, focusing on, like I said, investment migration. It's a strong company. It's an international company. It operates on the same platform as any other due diligence company. Um, how do we advance ourselves? We have our partners in different areas of the world, in the Middle East, China, US, Canada, Europe, all over. And we pair that with strong networks, Interpol, Ameripol, Europol, any investigative body that exists, reputable international bodies, GCSL is a part of. Right? All of the staff are fully certified, fully equipped to handle any task and to further strengthen the CBI and investment migration process.
Which we all know is definitely needed. Historically, due diligence has been viewed as a compliance requirement. Today, many argue it has become a strategic credibility signal. Do you see that shift happening across the industry?
I'll say to you, Ms. Michael Tissa, due diligence is the cornerstone of CBI. It is the ammunition that Caribbean government needs to fight against international pressure. And without strong due diligence, there's no CBI. It's as simple as that. You have to have due diligence. It is a must. It is not a compliance mechanism. It is a pillar of migration investment.
Do you believe that Caribbean CIPs are operating in what we might call a trust deficit environment? And if so, what created it and what sustains that?
I don't think that the Caribbean CAPs are operating in a trust deficit. Why I say that? It's because simple. When we look at due diligence, persons may not know, but the same companies that the Canadians use, the American use, the EU use, is the same companies that the CBI government use. Exact same companies, and it's tested. People could look at their websites. The greatest of nations, we are in the Caribbean and par with the greatest of nations when it comes to due diligence. We use the exact same companies, we use the exact same agents as any other international companies. So we are right there, we are platinum.
I agree 100% with you. I definitely think
Mhm.
that, bigger countries do look down on us because we're in the Caribbean and they think that we're not doing our quote unquote due
Due
diligence
diligence,
when we definitely are.
yes.
So, your firm works on both due diligence and reputation management. What role does due diligence play in aligning a program with international compliance frameworks and evolving geopolitical realities?
So due diligence, like I said before, is a cornerstone of these programs, right? We have international compliance to banking, money movement, and of course, without the due diligence, you would not know who you're dealing with. You would not know who your client is. And so, what due diligence does is give the CIPs advanced information as to who or which client to engage, which client are good, which client could pass the threshold, the international accepted threshold where money movement is concerned, where reputational risk is concerned. And so it it is a pillar of strength for the decision makers in the CIP unit, in the various, and I speak for all CIP units in the region. When money is on being moved from China, the Middle East, all over the world, these governments rely heavily on the due diligence. And so we must tell them, hey, this person, this client is good. This client could move money from Dubai to America, into St. Kitts, into Antigua, into St. Lucia. And that is what due diligence does. A proper due diligence does. It aligns, it aligns the program with the international compliance framework, especially in the banking and financial sectors.
Agreed. There's Is there a difference between the due diligence on banking when you cannot technically, the banks cannot reveal or let you know too much information, so that's why the client has to provide so much details to you?
The banks have their secrecy policies protecting client information, and we respect that. As a due diligence practitioner, we respect that, and so that is why we ask for the CAPs to give us as much information from the client as possible. What that does, we are able now to take that information and authenticate it against our investigation, our boots on the ground investigation.
Agreed. We definitely have to remember that there is a human factor in making this decision.
Mm-hmm. Of course it is.
So let's jump into how strategic vetting strengthens the program's reputation.
Mhm.
Walk us through the critical steps in a high quality due diligence process for CBI applicants. Which parts of the due diligence workflow are most critical to preserving trust and why?
That is a very good question because it serves as the basic backbone of the due diligence process. So, one, a high quality due diligence process. It entails identification and verification. You must be able to identify the client. You must be able to verify the client. You must be able to authenticate the documents presented, passport, IDs, banking records, right down to the educational certificates of these persons. We literally have to strip them down. Then you move into the source of wealth. You do fund analysis. You want to know that the client can invest in these countries. Not only that, you want to know that the monies that the clients are investing are good monies. They're not from money laundering. They're not from drug trafficking, right? They're not from any type of criminal enterprise. And then we move into the background checks. You check your global databases, your Interpol, your Meripol, your Europol. You check your sanction list. You check adverse media. And there's a lot of things out there on the internet. But what we do differently, we screen the adverse media against our boots on the ground investigation so that the client can get a fair chance, a fair shake in their investment, in their quest to invest. And then you move into the reputational risk assessment. The reputational risk assessment says to you, hey, how much risk this client is going to bring to the country. So the client could be a multi-billionaire, but the reputational risk for the country, we say no because the reputational risk is too high. The reputational risk is just something that the country could do less without. And then you go into the independent field of investigation where we say, hey, we have done the intelligence led work, we have done the artificial intelligence work. So now we go into country. We go into country and we check homes, we check addresses, we check workplaces, we check banks. And that is the strength of a high quality due diligence product.
Well, I have an interesting question for you. So, what about preserving the trust of the client, of the applicant? There's definitely times when you're explaining to an applicant, yes, I need all of this information, and they're looking at you like, giving you the side eye. But what about preserving the trust of the client?
You see, the client have to understand that when the CIP, so due diligence practitioners, we don't interact with the client.
Not at all.
We don't interact with the client because, and not to knock on any bad win, but we have had instances when we do our reviews with different CIP, they tell us, hey, investigators are asking the client information. That could work. That can work against the reputation of the product because persons we're dealing with multi-millionaires and billionaires. I could be a bad man and I say, hey, let me give you an extra $10 million if you claim me. And that is what we guard against. And so we use the CIP to interact with the client. They are the ones who ask for these documents. They're the ones who ask for the data. What we do, we have a relationship with the CIP, a trusted relationship with the CIP, that we would not use or sell those information to any third party vendors. We will protect the information, and the CIP will tell us when and how and in what manner we can destroy the information if they choose to do so. And so the trust of the client where the process is concerned is paramount. It's paramount because we know that data, information is digital gold in this 2026 environment.
It definitely is, and they're getting smarter. The systems are
Exactly.
getting
Hmm.
smarter. How do due diligence teams assess reputational risks versus regulatory or financial risk? Are some of the types of risk harder to detect than the others?
Is financial risk is very easy to detect because you're dealing with live and real data. It's either you have the money or you don't have the money. We can do an investigation on the money to figure out if it's money laundering or it's not money laundering. We can say that your time of employment to now moving into investment does not match the type of investment that you want to do. And so the cumulative salaries or investment over the period that you present to the CIP may not match our financial analysis. And so you may come out of very high. So that is very simple. What is more technical and difficult is the reputational risk. Because reputational is perception based, predictive based. And so that is where we are more careful because you have media narrative out there and sentiments trend. Someone could we have had instances where you have a good person, solid background, but the adverse media tells a different story. The political affiliation, different controversies, business conduct, the type of business you're involved in. And we have had those kind of things. And so what we do deep analysis of those data so that if the online media is saying this person is bad, this person have suppressed political dissidents or political opponents, we now have to assess that and say, hey, put the data that is out there into context. How we do that? We cross-reference. We cross-reference different data source. We cross-reference with online media, with law enforcement investigations, and see if the two of them match. If we have a connection with law enforcement and intelligence sources data to what is out there on the adverse media, then we can say, yes, this person is in fact a reputational risk, high risk for the CIP. But it's a very tedious and very difficult process, but it's something that we have to do to provide, like you said, a high quality due diligence product for the CIPs.
So, are you telling me that on my application, if I give you my business email address, you can also find my Hotmail account and then go through my social media?
I could tell you if you give me your email address, I could find your bank
Okay,
accounts.
no, no.
I could find your bank accounts.
Okay, yeah, no.
There are technologies that I'm not getting into the trade craft, but there are technologies that we use that your email address becomes your online DNA. And so we plug in your email address and we can see all where you have a
Okay.
bank account.
Well, we're not going to talk about my account. So, in emerging source markets or politically complex regions, how do you
Mhm.
adjust your due diligence approach?
When you have, take for example, there's a war right now raging in the Middle East. The US, Israel, Iran. Not getting into geopolitics, but it's factual. Missiles, bombs are falling all over the Middle East. And some of these are in places where clients come from. And so what do? We move from a standard compliance model to a more intelligence-led model. This involves deeper human intelligence, deeper human investigation, source triangulation. I don't want to to mix up with all the terminologies and so forth. But then we have to find ways and means to get around the political sensitive regions. And we do informal networks. We do network mapping. Network mapping simply means if my company cannot reach Syria, then some other due diligence company can reach Syria on my behalf, right? And so we intertwine. So it's like one big family. It's like a relay system where the strong help the weak in one area so that we could provide the best product. We understand that we work for the same practitioners. We understand that. And
Right.
so anytime you have region right now, the UAE, some of the biggest markets, they're on fire. How do we operate in that zone right now? How do we operate without any added costs to the CIPs or to the applicants? Like I said, we got to ex- we got to informal networks. We rely heavily on the boots on the ground because some places internet may be down, so you can't
Yeah.
communicate properly. And so we go, as they call it, full human type investigation, which I must caution takes very long. But the CIPs understand it is necessary.
Agree. It's always necessary, and honestly, the human factor has to stay in play at all times. So we
I,
understand.
I must add also that one of the benefits of GCSL, we provide we provide the CIPs with the socio political environment where the client is coming from. And that is that is very, very, very useful. I will tell you this. You have some environments out there, some countries out there, where you find a male applicant, the husband apply. He is the breadwinner in the home, but the wife is the person who is financing the application. And somebody will ask why. But in their culture, the wife controls the money. And so you have to
Understood.
understand that. And you have to give that, share that. It may seem minute, but to the CIP unit reviewing your report, they say, well, why is that the husband is the one who is employed? Why is the wife funding the application? Where is her money coming from? And so we have to tell them in this part of the world, the husband works, but the wife pays.
After the interview, you can literally give me the list of those countries. I'm always willing to relocate.
And get married.
It, I, okay, never mind. Forget it. I'll stay where I am.
Okay, good.
All right.
Mhm.
So, how can intelligence gathered through due diligence inform broader program strategies, such as market targeting and investor engagement, while maintaining credibility?
So, due diligence, when people hear due diligence, they think investigation, they think looking back in somebody's life. Of course it's all of that. But the product is a strategic asset for the CIPs. they get to identify high risk and high valued markets using the due diligence product. They, the product the product, once it's done at the highest standard, could tell a CIP we have to market more in China. There's an emerging market in India. There's an emerging market in the USA. And then it feeds into the policy adjustment. How do they now adjust their policy based on what they are seeing with the due diligence reports coming in? We are getting more clients out of North America. If we get 100 clients, the due diligence product is saying 90 of them are good. And so, hey, let us shift our market to target North America. It strengthens the product, also strengthens international partnership and trust with the regulators. And when I say that, an international regulator wants to know that a due diligence company is solid. They want to know that a due diligence company is not just using a click of a mouse, an AI type report. They want to know that the company is backed by solid investigators, intelligence officers, and they have the ability to reach where the client lives, where the client works, and not only where the client lives right now, but where the client lives in the past 5 to 10 years. And sometimes you have a client that would live in Antigua for 2 years, move to Dominica for the next 2 years, move to Trinidad for the next 3 years, move to St. Kitts for the rest of their life because St. Kitts is a beautiful country. And so we now have to check all of those countries. And the regulator wants to know that the due diligence report or the due diligence company can in fact provide that type of information. And once we express that, not just in words, but in writing, in action, then you could see where the international partnership, the regulators say, hey, GCSL is a company that we want to work with. And we have had that type of review. We have had that type of feedback. So it works.
Okay. So let's talk about GCSL at
Mhm.
CIS 26. Wow, that was a lot of letters.
That's a lot.
That was a lot of letters. So, when delegates engage with Global Communication Solutions Limited at
Yes.
CIS 26, what kinds of strategic discussions do you hope to have with program leaders, advisors, and policymakers?
Okay. One of the biggest things for us at GCSL is how do we get the CIPs, the banks, and the due diligence companies working off of the same platform. And I said this, the due diligence companies do a robust and heavy investigation into these clients. We submit our reports to the CIPs. But then there's a bottleneck because the banks are now saying, hey, we have to do our own checks. We are basically saying, hey, we have done the checks for you. We have done the checks for you. We are working with our international partners. We have boots on the ground in country. So let us use this one product to streamline the migration investigation process. And that is something big for me. That is something big for me, where if we can get that policy shift, I think that it will benefit the banks, the CIP units, the due diligence units, and the country. Also, what is vital, one of the conversations that I want to have with program leaders, there's a lot of talk about AI, and you're going to hear it in CSI 26. a lot of talk about AI, artificial intelligence, ingrained into the product. One of the things that we at GCSL caution against is using too much AI in investigation. There's some things that you cannot remove from a due diligence process, and that is in-country investigation, boots on the ground investigation. You cannot remove that. You cannot remove the human factor and allow AI to do your analysis, especially as regards to reputational risk. And so we are cautioning them, while AI adds speed, it don't always add accuracy. And so those are some of the conversation that we want to have. Policy shift where the banks say, hey, we're going to onboard the companies, and we're going to use their report. We trust them, we engage them, and this is good enough to satisfy our regulators. And caution against the overly reliance on AI to generate DD reports for CIPs.
At GCSL, do you use AI to confirm that a translated document is exactly what it says, or do you use the human person to do that?
We use both. We
Okay.
use both. Because one of the things that we find with AI, it tends to, if you use AI, it tends to interpret certain characters the best way it sees fit, right? And we have had challenges and we have tested it. We translate a document using AI and then send it to our verifiers. And they say, hey, we miss a word. A simple word could change a document. A simple word, a simple verb, a noun could change an entire document. And so we are very careful because we always have to remember the client. We also have to remember, give the client a fair and balanced approach to their documents, to their work, to their investment. And so at the end of the day, when we submit a document and the product to the CIPs, we must know and feel good in our hearts that we did the best job possible for the CIP units, for the country, and for the client.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Are there particular misconceptions about Caribbean CBI programs that you believe should be confronted more directly at CIS 26?
Yes. One of the biggest misconceptions, just what you said in the beginning, that these Caribbean CIPs are weak on due diligence. And I want to say that is a myth and that is a lie that is being told. Why I say that, and I'll repeat it again. Some of these very same companies, GCSL, FAC, all of them, Exiger, all of these companies are being used by the same international governments, private institutions to run their due diligence check. There are not many of us, and so they have to come to us. And so when I hear that the Caribbean is weak on due diligence, I say, but where's that narrative coming from? Because just like I said, all the governments around the world use basically the same companies. And so if Caribbean due diligence is weak, it simply means that the global due diligence company is weak. And so that is the major misconception that I want to be addressed at the CIS 26.
The other misconception is that it's definitely much harder to get a Caribbean passport than it is to get into some of these a visa into some of these large countries. It takes longer for them to process, but the information that they require is nothing compared to what the Caribbean CBI requires.
And I don't want to hit any country, but when we look at migration we have seen where more persons pour over the US southern border, more persons cross over into the EU than all of the CIPs combined in the last 10 years. And so we are trying to do it the responsible way. I'm not blaming those countries because everybody wants to secure the borders. But the reality is we are trying in the Caribbean to do it the responsible way. We are using the same service providers that they're using, but yet we are still labeled as high risk. All right? And so when all of these persons pour into these countries, they seek asylum. Some of the hundreds of thousands of them get asylum. They get relocated. They get all kind of different things. But we are being knocked because we are trying to do it the responsible way. We are not perfect, but at least we are trying to do it the responsible way. And we are using the same companies, GCSL, the FAC, the Exeger, all these companies are used worldwide. GCSL is worldwide. We do due diligence for companies out in the Middle East, in North America, in the UK, in EU. So there you have it.
Well, that leads me to my next question. What is one actionable shift governments or authorized agents could implement immediately to strengthen brand resilience?
Biometrics. Biometrics. Why I say biometrics? Because that is where we are moving. Think it's have done it. All of the other Caribbean countries wants to implement it. And I think that is where they're moving. Capture the applicants' biometrics. It will strengthen the product, the whole migration investment industry, because your face, your fingerprints, your eyes, you can't hide who you are once your biometrics are captured. And so that adds another layer on top of the due diligence, on top of all of the financial checks. We're saying, hey, this is the person who applied for investment into the region because we have their biometrics. And so I would say go full biometrics.
It's coming. They recently had a meeting. I think all of the CARICOM Islands were
Mm-hmm.
just in DC for a meeting
I'm aware.
to work on that approval. Shh,
Mm.
don't tell them. Okay.
Yes.
In a market that values speed, how do you convince investors that a long vetting process actually increases the value of the passport they're receiving?
A lot of CAPs said, hey, we really need this report fast track. The clients are saying, why do I have to wait so long? I'm investing all this money. Why do I have to wait so long? We don't sacrifice accuracy for speed when it comes to due diligence. We have said that to the CIPs. We are not going to tell you we can do a full Didi on a client in a week. That's unheard of. And any Didi company who tells you they could do a full, high quality Didi product on any applicant in 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 14 days, 20 days, then I'll be the first to say, run from that company. Speed is relative in migration investment. Why is that? Because 30 days is fast. 25 days is fast. Given that all of the data you have to collect, all of the data you have to analyze, all of the data that you have to research, And so the minimum I would recommend to any CIP is 25 to 30 days. The minimum. And clients have to understand that because we have to protect the security of the country. We have to protect the visa-free access that the countries have. We have to protect the program credibility. And no one wants to know that a due diligence company return an applicant's report in 3 days. No one wants to hear that. You have to also protect the global mobility. You don't want any, because you want speed. We are mindful that those bad actors out there is saying, hey, we can get you to St. Kitts, we can get you to St. Lucia because they're fast. We can get you to Antigua because they're fast. And then our reputation, not just as a country, and not just as a company, but the whole region, the whole entire region now become high risk because we sacrifice accuracy for speed. And so they just have to understand that we're going to take our time, we're going to go fast, but we're going to be accurate. And so that is important.
Accuracy is key. So, looking ahead at the future of the Caribbean CBI programs, with increasing geopolitical complexity and data transparency, how will due diligence practices likely evolve over the next 5 years?
Ah, it's a good one. You see, we're moving into, and I think I touch on it when we talk about AI, we're moving into a more technological type industry. We're bringing in our biometrics, which is good. We are now seeing where people are now moving into paying with Bitcoin. We're seeing a global shift, a global realignment of how people move money. So, how the industry respond to those changes, it's we have to be we literally have as due diligence practitioners, and again, remember we spoke about a strategic asset. The report is a strategic asset, and in terms of marketing and different things, it is the same way. How do we how do we position ourselves for international change? How do we how the war in Iran is going to affect the industry? What are some of the requirements that the USA, the EU, Canada, the UK would want to see implemented? And we just have to wait for those recommendations to come, because they're going to come, but not just wait for them to come, but we also have to be forward thinking. So we already have the biometrics, like I said. What else? Blockchain to secure your report. We can see um, more advanced AI technologies. We can see where we can use technology to 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 certify to certify documents, and you know it's something that we just have to be ready for. What the for is, we don't know as yet. And someone may ask, how can you be ready for something you don't know? It's the same way we didn't know about AI, but it's here and we embrace it, we are ready for it, we are using it. So it is the same thing. We just have to position ourselves, stay on top of what is happening globally, and forecast, do our forecasting.
Understood. Either that or you can watch movies because I swear
Mhm.
Will Smith predicted the whole artificial intelligence in iRobot.
Well, artificial,
Okay,
artificial, artificial intelligence has been around for a very long time. We just never call it AI.
correct. Correct, correct, correct. So, how do you see the global narrative around investment migration evolving over the next 5 years?
Um, the narrative will shift from buying citizenship to a more earning membership. So right now, you hear a lot about people buying passport, people paying money for passport. You're not hearing. So now the topic now is migration investment. So it's already shifting. The narrative is already shifting. No longer you hear buying citizenship and buying passport. We can move to a merit-based pathway. We we we, we can move to persons aligning with global security and compliance standards, just like what Trump did in America. He introduced the golden visa card. You pay X amount, you target more high-end persons. They're not getting citizenship, but it's a pathway, a merit-based pathway to citizenship. And maybe that is some of the things that we can do in the region. Instead of people just paying money into into a fund, we can say to a multi-millionaire, multi-billionaire, hey, you want citizenship? You bring over a hotel, you bring over a factory, you bring over technologies that the Caribbean needs, and we could grant you citizenship. And so we have something more permanent in the region that we can look to and say, hey, that is because of the program. That is because of the narrative change of the program. No longer people are buying citizenship. It's a real investment. It is a real investment. Buildings and structures and technologies in country. And I think people will be happy with that.
Locally and internationally, I agree with that. With the coming of the new Regulatory Regional Board, ECCIRA, will you be changing the firm's methodologies to align with these new binding regional intelligence standards?
We have to. I don't think that they're novel. We have been doing a lot of that right now, but what I can say, we have read the recommendations. They're good recommendations. And so aligning what we're going to move to, we've already did all the research, is a more regional intelligence sharing mechanism, right? We pass information across different jurisdictions and do more more networking so that the cross-border investigation I spoke about before is more robust, it's stronger, and the more we share among ourselves in terms of the companies and CLPs, the stronger the regulatory framework would be. And so I have no problem with the change in methodologies. It's something that we recommend and it's something that we're looking forward to.
So, you've touched on AI before. Technologies such as AI driven intelligence, analysis, biometric screening, and digital identity systems are gaining traction. How might these reshape the due diligence landscape?
Okay, we have touched on AI, like you said. AI is good. AI driven intelligence analysis makes for faster and deeper insight. And so, what the human would have normally take half an hour, the AI can give you back in seconds, minutes. And so it adds speed and it adds deeper insights to the product. You have biometric verification. What that does, eliminates identity fraud. You remember I said to you that part of a high quality report, the first thing is identifying the client and verifying the client and document authentication. And so biometrics is in that. You have the digital identity ecosystem. And what do I mean with that? It provides a secure and real-time validation of the client and their documents and their data. And then you have the blockchain, like I said, blockchain-based records, good for transparency, good for traceability. So when you submit a report, you know that it is secured from the Diddy company right down to the last end users. But anytime I speak about any type of technologies, I always caution that technology complements, not replace, the human judgment and the investigative expertise. And so for me, the strongest system will be a hybrid model, combining technologies with strong intelligence, human intelligence analysis. That is the best model, the hybrid model. We cannot and we should not replace the human factor because we have emerging technologies.
Wow, this has been a really great conversation, and I'm sure the delegates and attendees at CIS 26 will love to take some of these conversations further. That concludes today's session. A key takeaway is that in today's investment migration landscape, credibility is built through design, not reaction. A strong due diligence framework is fundamental in ensuring the long-term sustainability of the sector. Thank you, Dr. Browne, for sharing these insights. And I thank you to our listeners for joining in. We look forward to continuing these conversations in St. Lucia, May 6th